Hey, Mars enters Aries, its own home sign, within the next couple of hours, and this is one of the most important transits of this entire year. It's fiery, it's explosive, it's driven, it's dynamic, and even though Mars is not one of the major, slower, outer-moving planets, what Mars by transit really does is bring this energy of these transpersonal collective energies and forces that are maybe consolidating in the field really into concrete action and manifestation, both on the very global political level, and we'll definitely see a lot of expressions of that, but also in the very personal realm. Mars has been in Pisces for more than 5 weeks now, since the beginning of March, 2nd of March. And this coincided with the Sun still being in Pisces, but the Saturn Neptune conjunction on 0 degrees of Aries already having happened at the middle or end of February. Now, the Sun has moved into Aries and Venus has moved into Aries, and they already activated Saturn and Neptune independently, but also their conjunction, this collective energy of this cycle of what Saturn and Neptune are really about. But Mars entering its own home sign, where really Mars, he holds the ground, he rules supreme in Aries, really will probably bring things to a very different kind of pitch and expression over the next couple of days. But before I want to get into that, I'd love to still look back a bit, because Mars having been in Pisces the last 5 weeks, even though we already had this activation of the spring equinox and of Aries energy coming slowly into manifestation, all this fire, all this drive, but also all of this explosive rage kind of energy in the collective field and on the global political stage, we did not have a true access personally also into how or where this new drive, this new energy, this new initiative that Aries wants to bring and explore and activate and initiate in our own lives this year. We did not really have that clear access to this kind of energy, or even the clarity of how to really bring that about or express that, because Mars in Pisces is really a bit at a loss. Everything at Pisces is a bit at a loss because it's so subliminal, it's so ethereal, it's so hard to put into words, and it's definitely not graspable. Whatever you try to grasp in Pisces, it's like fish, it's like water, it's like sand through your fingers. You can't hold on to it. There's no substance. The boundaries are dissolving. So for the past 5 weeks, Mars in Pisces has coincided or mirrored a very deep lesson for all of us, which kind of still drives the point home of Saturn and Neptune the last months and years in Pisces, of really where and how do we have to tune into our own deep sense of connection to spirit, or whatever else name you want to give it, that allows us to find a sense of trust and surrender and gracefulness in the not knowing, in the unknown, in all the ways that we can't have clarity, can't have certainty, or also can't have the ability to move forward and to act, what Aries wants to do so much. So the last couple of weeks might have been very confusing, because we had this very kind of oppositional energy in the field. On the one hand, we feel this new Aries fire that really wants to propel us forward, but at the same time, there was still all of this dissolution and confusion, or maybe also grieving and resting and regenerating and gathering energy that Mars had to do in Aries, where we had to be guided by intuition and not by will or fire or instinct or drive. And this is a very key lesson, I think, for all of us to not just keep in our mind or keep in the back of our mind, but really to keep on anchoring into as Mars now moves into Aries. And that's because Mars in Aries will coincide with a lot of explosiveness, a lot of reactivity. Yes, a lot of drive, a lot of fire, and a lot of clarity that we've been maybe wanting or lacking or feeling like we can't access at all the last couple of weeks or even months and months, with Saturn and Neptune also having been in Pisces for so long and really closing this huge collective cycle, really like huge, deep, profound timelines. If you want to go that far, definitely I would say also where we're collectively, not just as a human population at this very moment, but on a very deep personal soul level, the last couple of months or last half year really coinciding with a very deep releasing of many, many kind of threats and karmic stories, right? Saturn is the ruler of karma that are much older than just this lifetime. There's again this mysterious, ethereal, intangible Pisces energy that we can never fully grasp and we can never fully understand nor fully prove. And that's not the point, right? But staying centered in also this acceptance and the gracefulness and the surrender while this new big boom of fire comes along and really wants to initiate big new cycles, big new energies for us, can probably save us a lot of intensity, a lot of heat, a lot of argument, of fighting energy, which will definitely be on the field from tomorrow on. There will also be from tomorrow on, by the time you watch this video, a lot of new energy, a lot of new drive, a lot of new desire, a lot of new zest, right? That hunger for life, that is so Aries. And there is a really deep and profound intelligence and even wisdom in that really youthful, kind of naive, instinctual energy that Aries wants us to embody. Still, Mars moving through Aries for the next couple of weeks is not just that we will probably see more intensity on the world stage, and I'm really not in the doom and gloom kind of camp, and I still want to speak about this in a second or even make a different video on that. But on a personal level, first of all, Mars will meet with Neptune over the coming days, over the weekend until Monday. And then by next weekend, we have this really intense Aries new moon, which will be exactly together with Chiron and Aries. And there we also have two of these much deeper archetypes of wounding and pain and exile that also really speak about the deeper subconscious collective forces that are brewing and that are really coming into the light of awareness in many really tragical ways and not good ways that can really feel like there's a rage of Aries, right? Aries was the goddess who was not invited to the wedding, and she threw the golden apple, the apple of discord, right? And that led ultimately to the war on Troy. An ancient war we still talk about. So we see these kinds of repetitions, a huge discord and a huge wounding that will come into effect right around the new moon, even stronger when Mars meets Saturn. So first we have this ethereal, kind of fuzzy, still there is this new fire of Aries, Mars and Aries, yay, but Mars directly meeting Neptune can still provoke a lot of deep spiritual longing, or a sense of longing and yearning for something that is beyond this realm, that we can't fully articulate, that we also might feel that we can never really achieve, no matter how hard we fight or how much we do. But it also inspires us. It inspires creative action that really comes from a kind of emptiness and a channeling that we just get inspired for something higher, something beyond, and act on that instead of getting lost in our own sense of self-identification with this primal life force that wants to push forward. Because that, of course, leads to a lot of this aforementioned reactivity and the intensity and the heatedness that we will see and will also see in our collective and also personal fields. People will be fiery the next couple of weeks. People will be on edge. People will want to push for their way. But a lot of it will come from reactivity, which I already spoke much about before with Saturn Neptune's conjunction. And the much deeper collective lesson of Saturn in Aries this year, right? Saturn wants to slow down. If you think about Mars as being the gas, this is like a common astrologer kind of analogy or metaphor. Mars is the gas, but Saturn is the brakes. And Saturn in Aries wants us to step on the brake for a second instead of directly reacting and pushing forward or thinking we need to assert our will. Otherwise, we might be caged in or are not free to express ourselves and our individuality. Saturn wants us to take a breath, just 1 second, and then consciously choose, what do I create? Because this is what Saturn really says. You do create, to some degree, your reality by the way that you react to the energies that are showing up, that are coming to your way. And by the way that we do react, even if we just take 1 second to breathe, so we don't go into this nervous system reactivity reaction, but choose to act differently and really choose to take that moment of pause that Saturn symbolizes, center ourselves, find this integrity and alignment, but also maturity, right? Because with Aries energy, yes, it's naive, it's youthful, but that can also bring up a lot of wounded inner children that are just out there for, like needing to express their fire and their drive, no matter how old the man or woman in front of you might be, or yourself. But Saturn's alignment and integrity and stillness is a bit of a break that is frustrating for Aries energy. Even if you don't have anything in Aries, you might not have any personal planet in your own chart in Aries, you do have the house of Aries, you do have that area of the chart somewhere in your life. It rules something in your life. You have Saturn, you have Mars somewhere in your chart. And you experience their big collective fiery impulse in Aries in your own life this year. So Mars now moving there really talks about where and how can we consciously choose to act on things, where and how can we channel our life force and our fire, our will, our drive. What do we even want is the first deep question, which maybe over the last couple of weeks of Mars and Pisces also was dissolved a lot. What do I even want? Right? And that brings us also to Mars directly now as it moves into Aries over the weekend. By tomorrow, Friday, hitting 0 degrees means it reactivates the point where Saturn and Neptune came together in the sky in the middle of February. And yes, the two big themes in the world stage, this really deeply mirrors and coincides with is, of course, on the one hand, the Epstein files and this major collective disillusionment. Yes, awakening, but also disillusionment. The awakening through the disillusionment, the robbing of the illusions, and the awakening to much deeper and also darker truths. It's very dark rabbit holes to get into. But also of how and where power and energy, two big Mars words, two big Aries words, are actually functioning, right? If you look on the bit of a deeper level there. And the disillusioning of where and how we thought Saturn, governments, control, power is consolidated or structured in its kind of hierarchies might all be just a facade. The old system is crumbling. On the other hand, Neptune also ruling oil and gases, and Aries being energy itself, right? And there also we see this huge war in Iran. And I also already spoke about this previously. We see Neptune in Aries and this kind of holy war and these different kind of leaders or world powers or even collective forces being kind of seized by the god of war, Aries, which is not a good thing, if you ask me, but also the kind of narratives and eschatological frameworks, right? The kind of end-time fantasies. There's the Neptune kind of sacred, religious, and end-time longing and fantasies or projection. There is Pete Hegseth talking about the construction of the third temple, an end-time fantasy of Judaism. There's reports coming out of US generals and whatever telling the troops that moving there and doing this fight and whatever they need to do in Iran is actually there to bring out the Christian Armageddon, right? And so we have this kind of very deep, very kind of occult and funny underbelly of what this conflict is actually about on the world stage with these religious powers. But on the more concrete level, it's of course also about the power of energy and oil and the Saturn, the scarcity and the restrictions and the blockage and the slowing down that we see here on the world energy and world trade and the markets, the slowing down of where and how energy is being distributed. So Mars activating this 0 point of Aries, where Saturn and Neptune came together and initiated this big new cycle, and whatever else it still wants to blossom into, to use a bit of a euphemistic word, whatever else it still wants to evolve into, these two kind of spirals, and of course the one is intrinsically connected to the other, the Epstein friends and whatever else, the friends of Israel, the Mossad secret network of blackmailing politicians and whatever else is going on, who actually runs the world, and these kinds of wars. So Mars activating that point means these kinds of energies will become stronger. They will get more energy, for better or probably for worse. And this brings me to what I briefly wanted to touch on, all of this doom and gloom. Because of course with Mars and Aries, I could say a lot now about like, oh my God, the next weeks will be so intense and there'll be so much fire, and, oh, and watch out, and ooh, be afraid. But that's the lower side of Aries. Aries' unconscious shadow defensive mechanisms is anger, but also anxiety. There is a deep fearfulness in Aries energy, which is the other side of the coin of the anger, but also the drive, right? Which is that I feel caged in, I can't express my freedom and what I truly want and need, so I need to burst through with anger. But behind that, there can be a huge fear and fearfulness, which we also see manifested and which many people exploit with all of the doom and gloom messages and the whatever, the YouTube thumbnails, like, oh, you know, it's, I don't want to say it's ridiculous because it hooks people, right? But is this what we want to respond to? Is this what we want to channel? Is this what we want to embody? Is this the kind of also astrology that we want to use? Because what I see when I see this collective astrology of this year is one of the most positive, potent, transformative, and yes, intense and profound activations that probably any of us will ever live through. This is much bigger than 2020. It's much bigger even than the freaking Renaissance. And I don't mean to say that this year will be like 2020. It's a very different kind of energetic configuration, right? But it's outer planet movements of Saturn, Neptune on early Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, and Uranus moving by the end of this month, also a big thing to talk about, into Gemini. And the combinations, the aspect pattern that they're creating, because there will be a flowing, fast, harmonious, supportive kind of trine energy between Uranus and Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. And this is the first opening of a major arc that was seeded and initiated in the late 60s with 68. This is when Pluto and Uranus were together. Pluto, the intensity and the hidden power and the darkness, but also the destruction and destruction of whatever kind of does not serve life anymore. And Uranus, the shaking up, the awakening, the Promethean flame. So the anti-war protests for Iran, the hippie movement, the psychedelic, whatever kind of awakening. And yes, there was also Pluto, there was also CIA kind of operatives that were actually trying to steer this counterculture movement. But this year is a big first opening of whatever has been seeded in the collective field there for all of us, for humanity. And Saturn and Neptune meeting that point right in the middle with two sextiles to other positive, supportive aspects is a huge thing. It's a really, really huge thing. I'll do different and more videos about this. But all I wanted to say with this is just, this is such a positive year. And that, of course, means that with so much more energy or light or awareness or awakening or whatever else name you want to give it, whatever other name you want to give it, the darkness is getting so much clearer to see. The outline of the shadow becomes more precise. But falling into the kind of trap of fear and hence reactivity, right? If we're afraid, we're in a trauma response, and there's the fight and flight mechanism, although also freeze and fawn that also come in. But the fight and flight, this is so much this Aries, and this is also so much what these kinds of forces want to pull us or push us into. So no, I don't go into the doom and gloom. I don't think there will be a third world war. Does that mean everything will be rosy and easy and no people will suffer? No, definitely not. But does it help you, or does it help the people around you if you are afraid because of this? Or does it help the world much more if you are able to center yourself, find that Saturn alignment and clarity and breathing pause to not go into instant reactivity, taking a step back, settling your nervous system and then choosing consciously where and how do I want to channel this life force and the attention that I have, which is being harvested, which is being manipulated in a major way as soon as we log online. What do I want to do with that? Because this is where we have true agency. And I think this is really the key word I want to leave you here with Mars and Aries. It's so much about agency. And really, and this is, I also said this before in other videos, but we can't know where the journey is taking us. This was the Saturn Neptune conjunction here and this big outer planet combinations. It's like a huge event horizon. Like the term event horizon describing what the end of a black hole is like, the last thing that we can see before the gravity of the black hole pulls in so much light that you can't see behind that. We are just passing through this huge collective event horizon kind of stage. We can't see, we can't foresee, we can't fully predict what or how things will play out. But it's a completely new energy and completely new timeline. Moving back to that Neptune closing its cycle also from Pisces to Aries. Aries energy corresponds so much to the intuitive, instinctive ability to just trust our own inner agency that just knows we need to do something. It's not mental, it's not rational, it's not a plan, it's not a vision, it's not a strategy. That's all the kind of like later signs. That's like Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. These are the signs that have the big overview and that can see far ahead, and where we can kind of plan these kinds of things, or where we get like whatever Virgo or Gemini more mental about trying to analyze and understand, and in that way gain a sense of control. We don't have that luxury this year. This year is about acting and trusting our instincts, and that might mean a lot jumping into event horizon places ourselves and just trusting that as long as this inner fire, this inner divine fire within us really says like, this is what you need to do. And that might also mean it scares you a lot, whatever that might be, to trust that inner fire and to see that this is also where and how the higher side of Neptune in Aries comes through, in the sense that we can't wait for anybody or anything else to save us. It's not the government, it's not God, it's not aliens, it's not our mommy or papi, or it's not the perfect divine partner or whoever else it might be. We need to step into that agency ourselves as human beings. And Neptune and Aries correspond so much to where and how our own connection to spirit, to ether, to divinity, to this unnameable beyond, call it God, allows us to become channels for that as well in our own personal lives. Not in the kind of way that is happening in Iran right now, or where the world powers colliding there, thinking my way is the highway and this is what God has decreed because God is on my side and it's not on your side, right? This is, of course, fooling ourselves, and this is the deception and glamour and confusion that Neptune can also bring. But in our own personal paths and in our own personal spiritual paths, in our own personal human paths, it's so much about trusting that fire within and seeing that this is also how God expresses itself. This is also, you are as much a part of nature and of life as everything else. And the intelligence, the innate network of life moves through you, moves through your desires, your dreams, your longings, and your instincts, just as much as it moves through the collective field of nature. And to tune into that and to trust that inner alignment. And always again taking Saturn a step back and taking a breathe and saying like, is this what I really want to do? Before we then jump into the kind of lava current again that just pushes us along with so much fire. It's a hell of an exciting year. It's a hell of exciting energy. This Mars and Aries is, wow, it's going to be quite a few weeks ahead. Especially this weekend and next weekend, as it first ticks off Neptune and then Saturn, two very contrarian energies. I'll talk more about this later on. But yeah, I really hope this gave you something. If it did, I'd be so glad and honored if you feel like giving me a little subscribe or like to the video or share it with friends that you feel could resonate with this. And as always, I'm also available for one-on-one sessions if you want to dive in much deeper on where and how the current transits are really affecting your personal life, your own personal unfolding and becoming. I'd be honored to meet you there. You can find all the links in the description below. And until next time, see you soon. Bye-bye.